Welcome to the Pet Loss Companion. I'm Ken Dolan-Del Vecchio, here with my friend and co-author Nancy Saxton-Lopez. This is a program that we do live on YouTube every Thursday from 6 p.m. Eastern to about 6:30, and then it is available for replay lots of different places. And we are very happy to have you with us if you're with us this evening, and we're very happy to have you with us if you are joining us through watching one of the replays or listening on one of the podcast outlets. This is a program that grew out of the book that we wrote a few years back called The Pet Loss Companion, Healing Advice from Family Therapists Who Lead Pet Loss Groups. And what we do here very often is we read notes that people have sent us describing the experience of losing their beloved animal family member and how they're doing at this point. And so if you would like to write to us, please do. And you can reach me at kenddv at gmail.com. You can reach Nancy at nancysaxtonlopez at gmail.com. You'll find all this information in the description that accompanies the program. And if you write to us, you can let us know if it's okay to share what you've written, to share it on the program, to share it with our audience on Substack. And you can also tell us that you'd rather we didn't. And one or both of us will write back to you when you write to us, and we'll share our thoughts with you. You can support our program in a number of ways. You can subscribe to the Substack where we post correspondence and photos from people who have written to us, and we post our responses, and sometimes there's a series of responses. And there's other ways you can support us as well. The program is a friend of Dakin Humane Society in Springfield, Massachusetts, and Dakin is a multi-resource adoption and shelter program. And one of the resources that they offer is a Zoom support group that I facilitate once a month. It is on the second Tuesday of the month from 6 o'clock p.m. to 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time, and there's no cost to attend. And you can RSVP using the link that's in our program description. We'd be happy to have you there. People come from all over the world. It's a very interesting mix of perspectives. People come whose loss is very new, and some people come who are either continuing for some time or checking back after being away from the meeting from some time, and brings a whole bunch of different strengths, recommendations, sharing of experiences that can be very helpful. Please consider subscribing to the program if you haven't already. This helps other people who may benefit learn of the program's existence. And if you have subscribed, perhaps you can leave a comment or a thumbs up. All of these, any involvement that you have with the program in that way helps the algorithm to make the program higher on the list of resources for people who are looking for pet loss support. So we appreciate if you do that. And we'd also just like you to know that we have an affiliation with a business called Bereave that makes these very finely crafted granite memorial plaques. They are the kind of thing that you would put on a gravesite or a memorial place inside your home, and really beautifully crafted. You can have an image on there. You can have whatever words that you'd like, remembering your beloved animal family member. And if you purchase a plaque from Bereave through the link on our program, we get a little bit of a part of your purchase price. So we get a little bit of support if you purchase through our link. And Nancy, you want to get us started for today?
Yes. As you said, Ken, we do share stories, and we have two tonight. And I think it's really important to reiterate that writing out the stories is really helpful, as May.
As
there.
May's here.
But also hearing them, right? We've had our folks that have written in, and we've shared the stories, and they get back to us, say thank you. It was amazing to hear it, to be able to through it.
Yep.
So this is from Mary about her Annie. Hi, I'm a new listener to your podcast, which I found this week while searching for information on coping with pet loss. I would be okay with you sharing on your podcast if you choose to. My husband Andrew and I married in 2012 and struggled for years to start a family. We both grew up with dogs and always knew we would rescue one day, maybe a more senior dog with low energy that just wanted to snuggle. So when a photo of Annie caught Andrew's eye on Facebook in January of 2018, I was a little surprised. A 2.5-year-old pit bull boxer mix, not necessarily known for their low energy. Um, she was certainly very cute, so I agreed that we should at least set up a meet and greet. From the moment we laid eyes on her, we knew she was ours. She hopped on the couch between us and took turns covering us in kisses. We filled out the application that day, and a couple weeks later, she was in our home. She had been with her foster for 4.5 months after a police confiscation somewhere in Missouri. Aside from those details, we didn't know much, other than the fact that she was dog reactive and not leash trained. During the 7 years we had her, she became more confident, much less dog reactive, and became a big sister to our son, who was born in 2019 and 18 months after we adopted her. He was conceived via IVF, and Annie was such a calming, reassuring presence through the entire process, all the way through my pregnancy, when she would constantly cuddle my baby bump. Although we were originally told she was child friendly, we found out later that she actually had not been around children at all. So, needless to say, we were nervous when we brought our son home. We put up gates everywhere and kept a close eye on them both as he got older and more mobile. Little did we know we had nothing to worry about. Their relationship blossomed over the years. She has been by his side, teaching him how to show love and kindness to others. She started coming into his room every night for bedtime and wandering in each morning to wake him up. Recently, he started reading books to her and would make nests for her on our couch so she could snuggle up next to him. She's had some health scares over the years, a mast cell tumor, which was removed with no remnants and no indication of spread, an odd case of canine leprosy on her ear, also removed, and aspiration pneumonia last year when she spent 2 nights at the emergency vet, and we truly thought it could be the end. Thankfully, she fought through, and within weeks, she was back to her normal playful self. Earlier this year, we did an x-ray as part of her wellness visits, and they noticed some nodules on her lungs. Our vet consulted with some specialists he knew, and their main concern wasn't cancer or another bout of pneumonia, but pulmonary hypertension. We took her to a specialist for an echocardiogram, and they found no issues, assuming that maybe these nodules were just part of an age-related change. We watched her closely for any signs of distress or illness, but she seemed fully healthy. This past weekend, Memorial Day weekend, we had a wedding to attend about 3 hours away. We dropped her off at our regular boarding facility on Saturday morning, dropped our son off with the grandparents, and headed out for the weekend. That evening, I received a call from the trainer at the facility that she had been playing and running as usual when he left for the night, but a staff member later found her collapsed and unable to stand. The trainer went back and rushed her to the emergency vet. Soon we received a call from the vet letting us know that she had gone into cardiac arrest, and while they were attempting to resuscitate her, they needed our permission to continue. Of course, we gave permission and immediately packed up our things to head home. Just 20 minutes later, we received a call that they had been able to get a heartbeat back, but there was no sign of neurological activity. As I was speaking to the vet, she went into cardiac arrest again, and after 10 more minutes of attempted resuscitation, she was declared deceased. It was the longest 3-hour drive of our lives. We opted to leave my son with the grandparents so that we could head straight to the emergency vet and see our sweet girl one last time. They told us the trainer had stayed with her until she passed, and they had her in a quiet room, snuggled under blankets, just as she would have been at home. We hugged her, kissed her, cried, and then said our final goodbyes. Just a few hours before, she had been fine. They still don't know what happened. Blood cell counts were normal, blood sugar was fine, no sign of anaphylaxis, internal bleeding, or digestive distress. The best they could guess, she may have had an undetected brain disorder or a blood clot. Regardless, we are devastated. We took a couple days to process ourselves before heading to pick up our son. The worst part of the whole thing was breaking the news to him that his sister was gone. We all cried together and have been ever since. Being home without her is the worst, as she was always in the room with us. We haven't been able to put away her beds, empty out her food bowl, or take her leash off its hook. I've barely eaten, and I don't even feel hungry. Ever so often, I'll begin to feel optimistic, like eventually everything will be okay. And the next minute, I have this unbearable pain that I almost can't handle. For my son's sake, we tried to talk about her and answer all of his questions, but it's hard when we don't have all those answers. I work from home a few days a week, and ever so often during the day, she would wedge herself under my desk, put her chin on my knees, and look up at me with those huge, big brown eyes. That was my cue to take a break and sit outside with her for a bit. Once I logged off at the end of the day, I'd take 20 minutes or so to sit on the couch with her draped over my lap, and it immediately relaxed me. I joked that she was my weighted dog blanket. When my husband would travel and I would be home alone with my son, she was always my company while I watched a movie after his bedtime. She would snuggle me, and when I was sad, lick my arm when I had panic attacks. And just this past week, she started jumping up into our bed onto our bed to snuggle me after my husband left for work. It's the one place we really haven't allowed her in the past, but I'm so glad I let her stay. Listening to your podcast and talking to others who have been through this is certainly giving me some things to think about as we go through this process. I know that someday this hurt will begin to ease, but it can't come fast enough. We're in a daze and struggle every time we do something for the first time without her. I know eventually we will adopt another rescue in need of a home, but I also know it won't be her, and that breaks my heart because she was so special. Not a mean bone in her body, but the most immense love we have ever known. We got my son a stuffed dog that he has named after her, and it hasn't left his side. I found myself snuggling it as well when I'm really feeling her absence. I keep looking for signs that she's here, that she's okay wherever she is, but I'm not sure if I've seen any yet. This grief is something I wouldn't wish on anyone, but I know the only way out is through. I'll continue listening to your podcast and taking everything at a day at a time. I look forward to the day when we can reminisce about her without bursting into tears and our hearts can begin to heal a bit. I know that the immense guilt I feel for not being there when she passed away is just part of the grieving process, but it haunts me. I always imagined her growing old and passing away at home with our arms around her. I only hope she knew how much we truly loved her. Thanks for listening and your wonderful podcast.
Well, there's so much richness in
Yeah,
this
right,
story.
right.
There really is, and the thing, one of the one of the elements that I see as a centerpiece is the relationship between this very lucky dog and this
And
very
that
lucky little boy.
boy, right?
And I mean, there's just so much here that's wonderful in terms of
Yeah.
him learning to be gentle and to have his
Learning to take care
to
of.
take care of, to be
Yeah,
responsible, to be empathic, to be patient, all those things
caring.
that
Love.
an animal teaches us, and just also not to be afraid of
Yeah.
them and to be very loving toward them. And I just want to comment that it's so important that they were honest with him. They
Yes.
told him that she died, and they cried with him. It sounds like they grieved with him. They tried to answer all his questions, and some of his questions were unanswerable, as many questions about grief and loss are. And so, I mean, it's a beautiful story about how parents help, how a parent helps our child to navigate grief, and also I'm sure he's witnessing them do it, which is a whole
It's,
lesson as well.
yeah.
It's very important. And
Parents are the role models.
always in everything.
Right.
And I mean, we don't hear about this so much, but we used to hear about parents saying that the dog went
Went
out
out
to a
to the farm.
farm, something like that. And it's those kinds of things are said out of the best of intentions, but they deny the really rich learning experience that comes with helping a child understand that we all die, that everything dies, and that we have different lifespans, and that dogs unfortunately don't live as long as we do, and that we're going to lose them most likely. And so this is just, there's so much that's really inspiring in this note.
It's a very it's a beautiful story about love and loss, right?
Yep. Yep.
And how much that they really loved, and hey, good for this was a pity with a boxer mix, right? I mean,
Yep.
so many people pit bulls. Oh my goodness,
Oh, some of the sweetest
Oh,
dogs. They are. I mean, the temperament of a dog has much more to do with its individual genetics and environment than any one breed being really more difficult than another in terms of their likelihood to be violent or vicious in that way.
the other thing I really could resonate with was not being there with her when she died. I had two that I couldn't be with when they died. And you always think about that,
Yeah.
even if it's been years, because
Yeah.
you really wish that you could have been there,
Yep. Yep.
And so you understand that.
And we know that the trainer from the
Yeah.
boarding facility was there, and it sounds like they
Yeah.
were very caring and attentive. And I imagine that that's some comfort to Mary and her husband. But wow, I mean, this is, and again, there's just so much here. Where the dog was her emotional support animal, even though
That's right.
probably didn't.
The weighted dog
Yeah,
blanket.
maybe she didn't have the vest, but she was doing it nonetheless. Most of them
Yeah.
are freelancing, as we've heard.
Yes.
And they got their son a stuffed dog who
Yeah.
is like the source of comfort, and that Mary said that she, I guess, snuggles with it as well. So, we do all kinds of things like that to try to help ourselves
To soothe
through
ourselves
it.
through
Yeah,
this
yeah.
very difficult grief journey, right?
Yep, yep.
Yeah.
So we want to thank Mary tremendously for sharing with us. I think this will be very instrumental for a number of people, and there's so much learning in this brief note. There's so much wisdom and learning for everybody in this note. So we really want to thank her.
Yeah, we appreciate that, Mary. Thank you.
And so we'll move on to Kaila. And Kaila lost her little cat, Luna, who was, here's a photo, was just stunning.
Oh, beautiful cat.
Beautiful cat. And she writes, "Hello, my name is Kaila, and I'm reaching out for some words of comfort and guidance from the podcast. Just yesterday, I lost my ragdoll cat at only 4 years old. My sweet, beautiful Luna. She was the most loving and beautiful cat. She showed no signs of illness and was happy as can be. She passed peacefully in her sleep, curled up in her bed. She died from HCM, hypertrophic cardiomyopathy. That went undetected her whole life. She showed no signs of any illness. It was truly a silent killer. She lived a happy life with 3 other cat siblings, and she was always the first one to run around and play and snuggle up at night. I'm struggling immensely with my grief of losing her and not understanding why this had to happen to her, and selfishly why this had to happen to, let me see. To me, I'm sure I lost my place. Happened to her, and selfish how this had to happen to me so soon when I thought I had so many more years with her. She was everything to me, and now she's suddenly gone with no warning sign. I was shaking her, begging her to wake up. I just keep replaying, finding her in her bed all over again, and I'm struggling so much to accept her passing. And I'm waiting to see her snuggled in my bed again. I would love for you to share Luna's story on the podcast to also help bring awareness to HCM in ragdoll cats. And if there is someone else who has gone through this, they know they're not alone. I'm feeling so alone with this grief, with missing my beloved Luna so much. I've attached a photo of my beautiful girl. Thank you, Kaila, and my angel cat Luna. So I don't know if this is something that is a particular issue with this breed.
For this particular breed or cat in general.
Yeah, but it's very, very sad. 4 years old, just gone in her sleep.
Yeah.
And it's so hard when we lose a very young animal because we lose the future that we
Yes.
anticipated
Right.
having with them, sharing with them. And that is a whole layer of the onion, really, in a way that's really very difficult. Very
And
difficult.
and unfortunately, there are animals that do die young,
Yeah.
and there becomes I'm working with a few women right now, and there's a lot of anger. We
Yeah.
were gypped. She
Yeah.
was
It makes
gypped.
sense.
He was
Makes
gypped,
sense. Yeah.
right? Of
Yeah.
this life. And there's
Yeah.
an expectation when you bring an animal into your home, we all know that they're not going to live as long as we do, but you expect or hope or fantasize that you're going to have so many years.
Yeah.
And then when that doesn't happen, then it's just overwhelmingly devastating,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And it's so sad. And
It's, I mean, their lives are short to begin with.
right.
And when you lose one, we lost one of our chihuahuas at age 5. And it's totally not what you'd expect.
Yeah.
Particularly, when you have a little dog, you expect they're going to live much longer than your average dog's longevity. You think they're going to live to be like 17 or thereabouts, and it doesn't happen always. There's
Yeah.
fate intervenes in ways
Yes.
that are way outside our ability to predict or control.
It's yeah, yeah. With one of the people I'm working with, that her dog, she had two dogs actually. One was older, one was younger. The older one was diagnosed. The younger one all of a sudden had aggressive cancer and died. The other one died. But the one that the younger one who died more quickly has a sister with a family member, right? And
Hmm.
so she can't see the dog. She
Yeah.
is so outraged that her dog didn't live,
Hmm.
and she has a sibling that's alive, and that's a real thing, right? I mean, that's how she feels.
Part
She was
rage is
so upset.
typical. Rage is often there in grief. Our feelings go all over the place. They are often volatile. They feel incomprehensible. They feel hard to manage. I mean, that's part of many people's experience of grief. Not everybody's, but certainly many
Yeah.
people.
Especially with trauma, especially
Yeah.
with the dying young. There's a lot of things that unfortunately happen. There's you know just even having a or being diagnosed, and then maybe hoping that there's time, or there's an expectation, or that's been told that there's time, and then in 2 days or a week,
Yeah.
they're gone. And so, I mean, I see that all the time at Crown. And people are just shocked. They just don't understand what happened. And so, it takes a period of time to really process that, and then they want to know why. And sometimes there's not really an answer.
Well, yeah. I mean, we heard from Mary that they really don't know what happened to her Annie. They don't really know.
Right.
And sometimes that's the case. I mean, it we've talked about this where when we lose our friend, any bit of information feels like it gives some little tiny bit of mastery or control, or
Yeah.
it gives you something to feel like at least you have something to hold on to that seems to make it more understandable. But
Hmm.
to a large extent,
Well,
it's illusory because the loss has
yeah,
happened and it's not going to change. But we reach for data, try to
right. We
like
want to know
get
why. We want
we
to
want
have
to
an
know why.
answer.
Yeah. Yeah.
And sometimes it's very difficult to ascertain that. And veterinarian or any medicine, human medicine, is not necessarily, um, on point all the time,
Yep.
right?
Yep. We just don't
Because
know.
each body is different, how things are reacting in the body, and especially we've talked about this many times, that our animals don't show us. A lot of
Yeah.
times they don't show anything
Yeah.
until it is in a very terminal stage,
Yeah.
or
Until it's over. It's
a
completely
crisis.
overwhelming their ability to be stoic.
Yeah. And
And
then all of a sudden you're on, I mean, the anxiety level. pet guardians goes way up because they're like, okay, now what?
Yeah.
They were like what Mary said, right? She was fine,
Yeah.
and then she died,
Well, and also many times they've been on the brink in the past and they've survived and
and
they've
then they
come
come back,
back to
right?
be healthy again. And so
Yeah,
there's always the hope that this time that will happen. And ultimately we lose them. And so it's great when they do recover, when they
of course.
rebound, but we can't trust that that's always going to happen. And so one of the things that Mary said as well is the only way to go forward is to go through this.
Yeah,
And that's
right.
such another important point. And here we have Kaila who's saying, look, I want to tell this story because I want people to know that they're not alone. And I want people who have ragdoll cats to think about this and maybe get them evaluated if that's something that is a
That can
pattern
be
with
done,
them.
right.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
that will indicate that
Yeah.
this right.
So we want to thank both
Yes.
Kaila and Mary for sharing your stories. And we want to remind you, if you could, to please give a thumbs up or another gesture, that a heart, or leave a comment, because that helps other people find the program. So if you feel like it's helpful, please do that. And also, if you haven't subscribed, if you would do that, that would help as well.
Yeah,
And
it's really important to think again about writing because I think it's very cathartic.
yep,
And then if you'd like to share, that's great because I think it's really helpful. Again, both of these people have said we get something out of listening to these stories. It's
yeah,
helpful. We're
yeah.
not alone.
And even if you don't want to share the story here, just writing it
Yeah,
down
write it.
helps a lot. Gets it
Right.
out of yourself, gives you some perspective, gives you some distance. You can do some rituals with the piece that you've written. Sometimes people will put it in the freezer for a
Mhm.
while as a way of trying to sort of get a little bit of a distance and then come back to it. I mean, there's all kinds of things that people do. And then some people don't write.
They
They
can speak
might
it.
write a poem. They
They
might
could
not
do
write prose. They might
creative,
write a
right?
poem. They might
Or
make
a
a
painting.
video or a mixtape or a collage or do a painting, whatever suits your creative instinct. And so
It always
all
helps.
always helpful to do things that'll help to get your feelings out in some way that you can then take a look at and reflect on. So Nancy, it's always great talking with you, and we'll do this again next week. And we've had a guest today. She's being a little bashful
Oh,
now. Miss
Esme.
Esme has been with us the whole time. She's been
I
with us the
saw the
whole.
little tail. She's a very
She's
beautiful
been all over me this whole time. I keep having to push her away. Say hi. Look in the
Yes,
camera.
she's
Look in the
beautiful. Oh,
camera. She's like
beautiful.
being very bashful. Anyway, all right. Take care.
All right. We will take care, everyone. We'll talk to you next week.
Bye.